So each year at our annual dinner, we hope to both thank and inspire our community, you. And I trust you will go home with your spirits properly lifted as we celebrate teachers and teaching. I must add my thanks to our many trustees who are here this evening. It was your passionate commitment to the college that so inspired me 2 years ago when I was a candidate for this position. Seems like a long time ago. And a special toast to our 4 previous board chairs who are being honored. A warm welcome to Jonathan Fanton, our honoree from last year, and a particular greeting to Gussie Kapner and Tom. Thank you. So, as many of you know, if you didn't already know it, you surely know it now, the work of Bank Street is to teach, teachers to teach, and children to learn. Doesn't this sound simple? At the core of what we do here in New York, in other U.S. cities, and for that matter internationally, are teachers and teaching. This is what we do, but why we do it is rather less obvious and more subtle. So tonight, I want to give you some of the why, which is at the heart of our mission. Now, to get to the why, we have to go back to Lucy Sprague Mitchell. You heard her name earlier. But what you didn't hear was that she was a martini drinking, Chesterfield smoking, Radcliffe graduate who founded in 1916 what is now Bank Street. Lucy was a revolutionary. Do not kid yourself. I don't know if that's about Lucy or revolution, but I'll take it. Like all of us, she was shaped by the time and place in which she lived, a time of great fervor among American progressives who were passionate about the importance of education. Remember, this was 100 years ago. Lucy had the gift of seeing and understanding the world as it was in the early part of the 20th century, and the further gift, really remarkable gift, of imagining the world as it could be. This is where I want to introduce the word democracy into my remarks this evening. Within the group of early 20th century American progressive educators, which included Lucy and her economist husband, Wesley Mitchell, who was among the founders of the New School, by the way, there was an idealistic desire to help citizens achieve a better life, and often this translated into what we might call upward mobility, providing for one's family. But these progressive and sometimes very privileged Americans were also taking the long view. Let's call them pragmatic idealists. They saw beyond the financial gain typically associated with being educated, and their idealism led them in a second direction. They wanted to strengthen and ensure our democracy, and they thought that a good education was the best way to achieve both of these goals. What Lucy and her fellow reformers sought was, in her words, a more just and humane world. In preparing the educated citizenry that would guarantee the future of our democracy, Lucy focused on children. Children who, with the right kind of education, would grow not only intellectually, but also emotionally and morally, and they would come into adulthood as caring, fully engaged citizens. Children who could think for themselves and make judgments that were not only rational, but compassionate and ethical. In the Bureau of Educational Experiments, a rather dry name for what is now Bank Street, but that was our early name, Lucy focused on young children. She asked herself and her colleagues, what is the best environment for assuring that children will learn? Of course, this, as you might imagine, led to the teacher. It was the teacher, well-prepared and passionate, compassionate and exacting, who could carry the Bank Street approach into the public schools, and those were always the venues that Lucy most cared about. There's a brief anecdote, probably apocryphal, that speaks of the importance of the teacher in creating the future of every nation. So I'm told, an anthropologist studying a native society on a small South Pacific Island, decided one day that she wanted to meet their leader. They had become good friends, she and the tribe's medical healer, and she asked him, the healer, if he would take her to meet the tribe's most important man, assuming that this would be their king. Instead, the healer took her to a small clearing in the jungle where an old man was teaching a group of children. "Is that your king?" answered the anthropologist. "No," said the healer. "The king is the most powerful man on the island. But you said you wanted to meet the most important, so I brought you to our teacher." The primacy of the teacher in the classroom is no longer in question. What is not always recognized, however, is the primacy of the well-prepared teacher in preserving democracy in our country. Not only does he or she teach math, science, language arts, but the teacher also models fairness and justice, encourages curiosity and independent thinking, and looks for the underlying connections that exist between areas of thinking and belief that on the surface might seem hard to find. Bank Street teachers begin each day with a class meeting. I've watched this myself. It's remarkable. All those wiggling legs. Here is democracy in action, with the children and the teacher briefly discussing what they should do that day. The teacher provides firm guidance, but the children ask questions and they make suggestions about what they really want to do. Discussing the subjects of the moment, the children are encouraged to listen respectfully to divergent points of view, all essential components of a fully functioning democracy. They're practicing early. They talk about how to work together, and they learn about how to disagree. These are good early lessons for those who will grow up and actively participate in our democracy. If you were to visit a Bank Street classroom, and I hope you will see these principles in action. The most obvious results of a good education are knowledge and understanding, but the real test of its value lies in the ability to use that knowledge and understanding in one's own life, personal, professional, and as a citizen. We all watch to see what various generations of students bring to the world, and I say to myself, looking at today's students, how will they improve this place? What are their beliefs and commitments? Will they choose to, quote, listen to money singing, as the English poet Philip Larkin once wrote about the intense sadness of materialism? Bank Street teachers, inspired by Lucy Sprague Mitchell and others, bring the gift of their idealism into classrooms every day. Not always at our best, with arguing our impact. We estimate that over the years, 10,000 students have prepared at our graduate school and moved into teaching positions. Bank Street perceives in teaching both an honor and a responsibility. We educate children to be citizens of our democracy, and we prepare teachers who know teaching is an honor. They are the most important people in the village, and that is the why of our work. Thank you.